During a game of truth or dare, I asked my girlfriend, if you met a guy younger than me who was into you, what would you do? My girlfriend glanced down at the underclassman next to her and answered without hesitation. What do you think? Of course, I'd choose the younger one. Why are you suddenly asking me this? You didn't actually think I'd choose you, did you? Michael, you gotta know your limits. She finished, then smiled and put her arm around the underclassman's waist. I didn't say anything, just looked thoughtfully at her talented younger friend behind her, because just a moment ago, she had confessed her feelings to me. My phone screen still showed her messages. Have you thought about it? Why aren't you saying anything? Am I really not as good as her? The spinner landed on my girlfriend. She chose truth, and as the person with the highest score, I had the right to ask the question. On impulse, I looked up at Diana, who was getting cozy with the underclassman. If you met a guy younger than me who was into you, what would you do? As soon as I said it, everyone went quiet. It seemed like they wanted to know her answer too. After all, lately, Diana had been taking Stephen, her junior, everywhere, acting like his mentor. It was hard to figure out what she was thinking. Diana slowly lifted her gaze and looked straight at me. Her voice, tinged with a bit of drunkenness, was surprisingly soft. Michael, do you even need to ask that? I'm almost embarrassed for you. After all, she was my girlfriend of 3 years, and I actually had to ask her a question that should have only had one possible answer. But the next second, she scoffed. Of course, I'd choose the younger one. Michael, you gotta know your limits. People around us looked at me with a mix of pity and disdain. Diana and I had been together for 3 years. She'd pursued me for over 6 months. Back then, she had nothing and I was still by her side. Not to mention, a year ago, the Millers found her, and she suddenly became a well-known heiress in S-City. Everyone was waiting for me to get angry or just suck it up. But I just remembered 3 days ago when I had acute gastritis, she said I was being too dramatic, that it was just gastritis and not the first time. Later, her friend Olivia took me to the hospital. But I saw Diana there, taking care of Stephen, who also had a stomachache. During the 6 months she pursued me, she used to smile and say, Michael, I'll always be good to you. 3 years together, and in that moment, Diana was completely ruined for me. Diana saw my expression, frowned slightly, and took my hand. It's just a game, Michael. Is it that bad? If it were you and you chose someone younger, I wouldn't be mad. I blinked. Really? A small smile played on Diana's lips. Of course. I looked down, thoughtfully, at my phone vibrating in my palm. Have you thought about it? Why aren't you saying anything? Babe, am I really not as good as her? I looked up and saw, behind Diana, an elegant and sophisticated woman whose eyes were fixed on me. That was Diana's roommate of 3 years, and her good friend. Just a moment ago, she had confessed her feelings to me. I blushed, unable to imagine someone like her calling me, babe. Looking up again, I stammered, then, let's break up. I choose the younger one too. Diana scoffed, looking at me like I was a misbehaving child. All right, got someone in mind? Need me to introduce you to anyone? I looked at Olivia's slightly shining eyes and shook my head. No thanks. Diana clearly didn't take me seriously and went back to playing with the others. Only Olivia, across from me, was looking at me with an intense gaze. My phone vibrated, babe, good girl. I started to regret it. In my mind, Olivia, though the youngest in Diana's dorm, was a true ice queen. I never expected her to be like this on the inside. My ears turned red without me realizing, and I got up to go to the restroom. When I came out, Olivia was leaning against the wall in the hallway. The moment she saw me, she pulled out a tissue and carefully dried my wet hands. Babe, I'll take you home later. Her voice was as gentle as water, and saying something like that sounded completely natural for her, just with an added touch of desire. My ears tingled hearing it, and I nodded instinctively, letting her lead me back to the private room by the hand. But as soon as we walked in, I came to my senses and pulled my hand away. When I looked up, I saw a flicker of hurt in her eyes. Seeing me come back with Olivia, Diana didn't seem to think much of it, just stood up and grabbed her coat. Let's go. I noticed her lips were moist, then glanced at Stephen. Yep, his were too. No doubt, the last dare must have been pretty wild. On the way back, Stephen casually hopped into the passenger seat of Diana's car. He gets carsick, you sit in the back, Diana told me. I shook my head. No thanks, I'll go with Olivia. This past month, Diana had been very busy. Whenever I tried to see her, she'd impatiently ask Olivia to keep me company instead. So this time, Diana didn't overthink it either. She just sneered, Michael, Olivia only agreed to hang out with you before because of me. How can you keep bothering Olivia? She's a bit of a neat freak and doesn't like people in her car. It's hard to get a cab here, so be sensible. Olivia looked at me, her eyes deep. It's fine, she's an exception. Diana's face darkened. She didn't look at me again and drove off. On the way back, I didn't dare look at Olivia. I just randomly stared at the steering wheel, only to see her long, fair, well-defined fingers. I swallowed hard. At a red light, Olivia stopped the car and handed me a bottle of water. Thirsty? I shook my head, suddenly feeling embarrassed. I didn't dare say I have a thing for hands. She chuckled softly, put the water bottle down, and took a sip of soda water herself. When she tilted her chin up slightly, her sharp jawline was clearly defined. My gaze was drawn to it again. She reached out and covered my eyes. Michael, don't tempt me. We're moving too fast. I quickly explained I just wanted to taste what it was like. She suddenly turned right, parked the car on a deserted park road, grabbed the back of my head, and kissed me. At first, she was restrained, just a light touch. Then her slightly heavier breathing fanned my cheek, and I instinctively parted my lips. Her breath hitched, and then she began to kiss me passionately. After a long while, she finally let me go. Her eyes fixed on my lips, her voice hoarse. Tasted it now? I didn't dare look at her slightly flushed, sensual thin lips and turned my face away. I saw the soda water had spilled on the leather seat, leaving a wet patch. The seat was dirty. I'd heard Diana say Olivia was a bit of a neat freak. She took out a tissue and started wiping it. It's okay. Michael can get anything dirty she wants. We hadn't done much, just kissed. But I felt the atmosphere was excessively intimate. On the way, Diana called me a few times. I didn't pick up. The last time, I told her regretfully, if I'd known your friend was this beautiful, I never would have dated you. Her babe from Olivia's texts made my heart ache. I didn't wait for Diana's reply and hung up. I blocked all her contact methods. Olivia parked the car at the dorm entrance. The Greens had donated $500 million to S University, so they had some privileges. After the car stopped, I instinctively reached for the door handle to get out, but it wouldn't open. Olivia saw the surprise in my eyes but didn't explain. She just leaned in close to my face, her voice magnetic and husky. Babe, when I call you that, does your heart really ache? Heat spread through my ears. I didn't know how to explain. Olivia's lips curved into a smile, as if she understood. So, babe likes to play like this, huh? The car door unlocked. I got out and was about to run into the dorm building. I definitely felt it. She seemed restless. Thinking of her slightly rounded shoulders, I sighed. The few drinks I had at the club seemed to be hitting me now. My mind went fuzzy, and I reached out and patted her playfully. Be good. Olivia chuckled softly and nibbled my earlobe. You really do have a soft spot for me, don't you? Just talking. How come I never noticed how flirty she was before? The dorm supervisor, walking by in her pajamas, sneered, youngsters these days playing such wild games. 3 minutes until lockout. I immediately pushed Olivia away and ran inside. When Michael hung up on Diana, she was dining with Stephen at a fancy restaurant for couples. Stephen said he wanted black truffle steak, so she brought him there. Senior, how did you know about this place? He asked with a smile. Did you bring Michael here before? She shook her head. A friend recommended it. She thought for a moment. In their 3 years together, she had never brought Michael to a place like this. She was an orphan, barely managed her college tuition with financial aid, and had worked 3 part-time jobs since her freshman year to make ends meet. Back then, she had fallen for Michael at first sight. Michael, like her, was a freshman. On the first day of orientation, Michael's photo appeared on the campus confession page. Everyone saw her delicate, beautiful face. Diana saw it too, and in an instant she fell for Michael. Back then, Diana felt insecure and poor. When she saw Michael, also a girl, looking simple in her faded jeans, she felt a sense of relief rather than intimidation. Later, she pursued Michael for 6 months. After they got together, she continued to work part-time. But one snowy winter day, when she came out of the restaurant where she worked, Michael was waiting at the door with an umbrella for her. Later, she was recognized by the Millers and taken back. But she never brought Michael to a restaurant like this. She vaguely felt that since Michael had eaten street food and at cheap diners with her for 3 years, it didn't matter whether they came to such a restaurant. But instinctively, she would bring Steven here. Besides not lacking money, more importantly, Steven's niche brand outfits weren't suitable for street food stalls. Remembering Michael's words, she felt an inexplicable panic. Steven, seeing this, comforted her. She's probably still angry, just saying that to provoke you. Diana thought so too. She knew what kind of person Michael was, innocent and conservative. She would never do something like getting involved with Diana's friend. But what was that fleeting panic? She couldn't explain it. Steven suggested, maybe you should go find her and explain. Diana? She was flustered and looked at the rain outside. No need. Let her be. She knew Michael's family situation better than anyone. Divorced parents? Both remarried. Michael didn't really have a home and was therefore terrified of loss. She needed security more than anyone. If Michael left Diana, she'd have nowhere to go. Diana was sure that within 7 days, Michael would come back to her, eyes red from crying. Thinking this, her panicked heart calmed down. When Diana returned to the dorm, everyone else was already asleep. Only Olivia was still at her computer, looking at the latest government bidding projects. She knew Olivia had recently started a company but didn't pay it much mind. After all, for people from their kind of families, there were usually only 2 paths after graduation: go back to the family business or start their own. Either way, with family backing, they wouldn't fall too hard. She didn't understand why Olivia, the sole heiress to a giant like the Greens, would want to start her own business instead of taking the easier path of inheriting the family enterprise. But it wasn't her place to say anything. Seeing Olivia in the dorm, she still felt a sense of relief. When Olivia saw her, she instinctively frowned. Diana, feeling a little guilty, rubbed her nose. After all, her roommates all knew Michael. And Olivia, though always cold towards Michael, had known her for 3 years too. Thinking about Olivia's character, not one to gossip, Diana relaxed. The next moment, Diana grabbed her clothes and went to the bathroom. When she came out again, she saw Olivia on the balcony, talking on the phone. Olivia's voice was a bit low. "Babe, what are you doing right now?" It was the first time Diana had seen the Ice Queen like Olivia with such an expression. A soft, light voice flowed clearly from the receiver in the quiet night. Showering. The voice, mixed with the sound of running water, was a bit unclear to Diana. When Olivia saw Diana, she quickly said in a coaxing tone, "Babe, message me after your shower. Okay? It's a bit inconvenient right now." The other person agreed, and the call ended. Diana looked at Olivia, figuring it was just possessiveness, and didn't say much. Actually, Diana couldn't see who Olivia was talking to, but it seemed Olivia cared a lot about this person. She casually asked, "Got a boyfriend? Is this the guy you've been texting every day lately? Don't tell me it's the guy you've had a crush on for 3 years?" Olivia sat back down at her laptop and hummed in agreement. Seeing Olivia didn't want to elaborate on her relationship with the guy, Diana didn't press further. After all, everyone in the dorm knew Olivia had a crush on a guy for 3 years. From the looks of it, she'd probably gotten her wish. It was just that she unexpectedly recalled Michael saying her friend was more attractive than her. She had indeed felt a moment of panic then. Thinking about it now, Olivia was the only one in the dorm prettier than her. And Olivia was already with the guy she'd crushed on for 3 years. This made Diana even more certain that Michael was just sulking. Diana breathed a sigh of relief. Remembering Michael's words, she still felt a bit angry. She decided to give Michael the cold shoulder for a while, to teach her a lesson. After getting out of the shower, I lay in bed and, on impulse, opened my chat with Olivia. Ever since Diana started hanging out with Steven, that underclassman, she rarely contacted me on her own. Even when I pestered her to go see the latest movie, she'd agree, but then the next day, she'd ask Olivia to go with me instead, saying sorry, the underclassman sprained his ankle. That day, I told Olivia to go back. After all, what was the point of us watching a movie together? She looked up at me. Are you rejecting me? Her face was strikingly beautiful, and the fingers holding her coat were long and well-defined. Her stance was firm, so I had to agree. When we got back, Olivia added me as a contact. Later, when I wanted to play games and asked Diana, she'd have Olivia play with me. Gradually, we got to know each other. Until the day I had acute gastritis, Olivia took me to the hospital, and I saw Diana rubbing the underclassman's stomach. Her conversations with me became, "Are you going to the school's welcome party?" My professor asked me to, but Diana said I wouldn't look good in that outfit. Olivia, don't listen to her. She has bad taste. I had a few outfits prepared for you. Try them on backstage tomorrow. That night, Olivia stared intently at me on stage. Later, I'd call Diana, and she wouldn't answer, so I could only call Olivia to ask where Diana was. Olivia said her calls to Diana weren't going through, so she could only try a video call. Diana doesn't seem to be in the dorm right now. If she's not there, why would Olivia pick up a video call meant for Diana? My roommate snickered beside me. What do you think she wants? Wow, I didn't expect Olivia to be so scheming. Later, feeling things were getting too ambiguous, I distanced myself from her. I stopped replying to her messages, and after a few times, she got the hint. Until she got drunk, called me on video with red eyes, and asked, "Am I really not as good as her?" I panicked and hung up. After that, she also kept her distance and didn't contact me again. Until today, when Diana organized the get-together at the club. As soon as Olivia got out of the car, she confessed to me. The next morning, when I went downstairs, Olivia was standing at the dorm entrance. The dorm supervisor was munching on sunflower seeds. When she saw me, she leaned in and whispered, said she's here for you. You're so lucky, one prettier than the next. Then she said loudly, "Hey, is this your girlfriend? It's the first time I've seen a girl waiting for you downstairs." After saying that, she even winked at me. When Diana was pursuing me, she often brought me breakfast downstairs too. During the 3 years we dated, she would also wait for me downstairs to go eat together. Olivia obviously knew this. Hearing the supervisor's words, Olivia's lips curved into a slight smile. She leaned close to my ear. "Babe, did you bribe her?" I was gradually getting used to her calling me that. Remembering the plastic bottles, cardboard boxes, and fruit I'd given the supervisor over the past 3 years, I nodded stiffly. Probably. As Olivia and I walked to the school gate, I ran into Diana's other 2 roommates. I instinctively pulled my hand away from Olivia's. She lowered her eyes, her gaze darkening. Luckily, the 2 of them didn't seem to notice anything and walked towards the basketball court. As soon as we got in the car, Olivia nipped my collarbone, sounding aggrieved. Am I that shameful to be seen with? I instinctively comforted her, of course not. Her lips curved upwards. She was appeased in a second. The car started and pulled up at a shooting range. I hadn't expected this. Some time ago, after liking a video, I meant to tag Diana but accidentally tagged Olivia instead. I quickly untagged her, but I didn't think she'd actually seen it. When we went inside, the people there clearly knew Olivia and welcomed us in. Olivia demonstrated for me 10 shots, all bullseyes. Under the special goggles, her perfectly smooth profile was in front of me. Diana could shoot too, just not as well as Olivia. She looked at me and took off her goggles, her thin lips curving slightly. "Babe, who's better, me or her?" I praised her without hesitation. "You, of course." On the way back that night, I noticed we were taking a completely different route. I asked, puzzled, "Where are we going?" She sounded aggrieved and said through gritted teeth, "To show you who's really better." Back to the shooting range? I didn't expect even someone as cool as Olivia to have such a strong sense of pride. The car stopped in the underground parking garage of a high-end apartment building. Olivia opened the car door and led me inside by the hand. The apartment door closed. She kissed me fiercely. Fast or not, you'll have to try to find out. I went limp, feeling all my strength drained, until I felt her burning arousal. Only then did I realize what she was talking about. She grabbed my hand, her fingertips tracing my palm. Anyone can say I'm not good enough, but not you. She looked straight at me and sighed. Forget it. Since Michael doesn't believe me, I'll have to prove myself. Her slender eyes darkened. My cheeks instantly felt hot. With that, her well-defined fingers slowly, unhurriedly, undid the buttons of her white shirt. I froze for a second. The next moment, she took my hand and gently pressed it below her waist. Almost instinctively, I cursed. Who could resist such temptation? Hearing it, her eyes lit up. Good. The next second, we fell onto the soft bed. Amidst the pervading intimacy, she asked me in a hoarse voice, "Can I?" I nodded. With someone like her, I wasn't losing out. The night was still young. Diana would occasionally see Michael. She seemed even more striking. The clothes she wore were from high-quality niche brands. She exuded a sweet and gentle aura, as if she were being well taken care of. Diana felt a stir in her heart but still didn't approach her. Until Olivia's birthday, when their other two roommates jokingly insisted the birthday girl treat them at the best restaurant in S-City. She remembered that restaurant was owned by the Greens. Olivia was looking down at her phone, her dark, choppy bangs hiding her eyes, which darkened and then darkened again. Diana knew what that look meant. So she teased, "What, texting your boyfriend?" Olivia looked up. Yeah. The other two roommates exchanged glances. Diana said you were in love, and we didn't believe it, but it's actually true. It's your birthday dinner today. Bring your boyfriend along. Olivia stood up and walked out. I'm gonna pick her up now. I'll send the address to the group chat. See you in a bit. She was always a woman of few words, so the others didn't say much. Diana looked down. She and Michael had been giving each other the cold shoulder for over a month. She opened her chat with Michael and sent a message anyway. It's Olivia's birthday tonight. You should come too. After sending it, Michael didn't reply. An inexplicable irritation crept into her heart. Just then, Stephen messaged her. Hearing about Olivia's birthday dinner, he asked if he could tag along to see the world. But Diana thought of Michael. Her voice was soft and pleasant, and even on their dates, she would just be shy and quiet. Diana really liked that side of Michael, but she was a bit too conservative. So when Stephen appeared, Diana enjoyed the slightly thrilling, ambiguous relationship. Stephen, on the other end, seeing she didn't say anything, took it as a yes and happily hung up. When they arrived at the private room on the 66th floor, Olivia hadn't arrived yet. Stephen, however, had brought two of his roommates. Seeing Diana, he affectionately put his arm around her. Diana, thank you. You have no idea, when my roommates found out I was coming here, they all insisted on tagging along. I figured Olivia wouldn't mind a few extra people, so I brought them. Diana frowned slightly. People from their kind of families were taught social etiquette from a young age. Even a 7-year-old knows you don't bring uninvited guests. But since they were already there, she had to give Stephen some face and didn't say much. Then again, she worried that if Michael came and saw Stephen, she might get angry. Then Diana would inevitably have to coax her. Oh well, a little coaxing wouldn't hurt. Having decided, she looked towards the door. Someone asked her, Diana, is Michael really not coming today? You guys didn't actually break up, did you? We haven't seen Michael in ages. Are you still giving each other the cold shoulder because of that truth or dare incident? Diana frowned and checked her phone. Michael still hadn't replied. She scoffed. Breakup? What breakup? She's just throwing a bit of a tantrum. Let her be. She thought if Michael came, Diana would apologize to her. Tell her that Diana still had feelings for her. As long as Michael stopped talking about breaking up, they could go back to how they were. Thinking of how Michael used to hold her hand and act cute, something Diana hadn't seen in so long, a smile touched her lips. If they made up, Diana wouldn't mind breaking things off with Stephen to make Michael happy. This thought vanished when Olivia walked in with Michael on her arm and sat them down at the head of the table, leaving only shock and anger. Almost instantly, Her eyes turned bloodshot with rage. She stared deadly at Olivia's hand on Michael's shoulder. She remembered the voice she heard on the balcony that day, so similar to Michael's. Suppressing her explosive anger, she sneered, "Olivia, don't tell me this is your boyfriend." It was the first time I'd ever seen Diana like this. I glanced at Olivia, a little lost. She gently patted my shoulder, a silent reassurance. Then, she straightened up and met Diana's gaze. And what if I said yes? Diana kicked over a nearby chair and slapped Olivia across the face. "Olivia, that's my girlfriend." Olivia looked up and grabbed Diana's shirt collar. "Your girlfriend? If I remember correctly, you were already kissing Stephen in the hospital before you and Michael even broke up, right?" With that, she pushed Diana to the ground. "Michael and I got together after you two broke up. I pursued her after I saw you cheating. You don't deserve her, Diana." Diana was panting, and instinctively looked at me, her voice no longer confident. "But I can change. Michael, we can go back. Break up with her and we'll get back together. You don't like Stephen? I'll make him leave. Okay?" I frowned. Her words seemed to infuriate Olivia. Olivia sneered, her face full of contempt. "Change? Diana, you're dreaming. Why should Michael just take you back and forgive you after you've messed around? Nobody has to pick up trash." I nodded, strongly agreeing with Olivia. Diana saw this, and the last shred of hope in her eyes vanished completely. She watched helplessly as I took Olivia's hand and left. From behind the door came Diana's unwilling voice. "Michael, do you think she loves you? Do you know Olivia had a crush on a girl for 3 years?" I stopped. I turned to look at Olivia, who looked nervous and wanted to explain. "It doesn't matter," I told Olivia. With that, I pulled Olivia away, leaving behind a trashed room and a group of bewildered people. Once in the car, I leaned in to look at the wound on Olivia's face. Diana had slapped her with all her might. The corner of Olivia's lip was already turning slightly bruised. "We should go to the hospital, it looks pretty bad." Olivia's lips curved slightly. She leaned closer, her breath fanning my face. "Kiss it better and it won't hurt. No need for a hospital. I'd had enough." She looks like an ice queen, but how is she so secretly flirty? The car windows were tinted. You couldn't see inside from the outside. But I still blushed. "Then just let it hurt like hell." Olivia laughed. "Michael, you're so cruel." I really couldn't resist her sensual look, so I started the car and drove to Olivia's apartment. On the way, I remembered to buy medicine for her at a pharmacy. After getting back in the car, my heart was in a turmoil. I couldn't help but ask, "You had a crush on someone?" Her eyes lit up. "Yes, and she's by my side now." Seeing my confused expression, she didn't explain, just kissed my forehead. "We won't miss each other again. I'll tell you when we get back. Okay?" As soon as we got out of the car, she buried her face in my neck, leaning against me. "Michael, it hurt so much." I remembered she hadn't hurt her leg, but it was her birthday, and thinking about how Diana had ruined it, my heart softened a little. Once we were inside the apartment and the door was closed, Olivia gently bit my lip. Holding the pharmacy bag, I was kissed until I went weak, and only then did I manage to whimper a reminder about applying the medicine. She parted her lips slightly. "Michael is my medicine." My face flushed, burned by the desire in her eyes. "You still need to apply the actual medicine." Her voice grew deeper. "All right, then let's apply the medicine." Late at night, the bedroom finally quieted down. Someone was heard saying, "Happy birthday," and someone else replied, "With you by my side, every day is happy, not just birthdays." The news that Olivia and I were together was made public by Stephen. He anonymously posted photos of Olivia and me together that day on the campus confession page, immediately causing a huge uproar. After all, my relationship with Diana over 3 years was known to almost everyone. And in the photos, I was leaning against her best friend. The post also included insults directed at me. Concisely put, it said I had been with Diana for 3 years, then got involved with my girlfriend's roommate, Olivia, clearly just after Olivia's status. Looks innocent on the outside, but is just a gold-digging woman on the inside. But he didn't know that a simple trace would reveal his IP address. After the evidence was saved, Olivia, with a cold face, had her legal team directly sue Steven. And she also released photos of him and Diana together. What I didn't expect was that besides photos of Steven and Diana kissing and coming out of a hotel, there were also photos of Steven entering and exiting a hotel with another woman. Everyone knew Diana cheated first. I broke up with her afterwards, and I only got with Olivia after the breakup. Then, a reply appeared from a girl from another school. Turns out, she and Steven had been together for 4 years, since high school. They started a long-distance relationship after college graduation, and the girl would visit Steven a few times a month. Lately, Steven had been making excuses, but she came to visit once anyway. That one time, Steven broke up with her. He vaguely implied that after graduation, they would be in different social classes. Finally, the girl also released a recording and their chat history. Later, I accidentally found out that Diana and Steven broke up after Olivia's birthday. Steven, unwilling to accept it, was the one who posted the news about me and Olivia on the confession page. Steven was sued and convicted for defamation, invasion of privacy, etc., and ended up detained for half a month. When he got out, his ex-girlfriend had completely blocked him. I ran into him at the University gate. Steven was holding Diana's hand, begging for something. Diana impatiently shook him off. When Diana saw me, her eyes reddened, and she froze on the spot. And I threw myself into the arms of Olivia, who had just gotten out of her car. Olivia stroked my head and took my hand to go on our date. Her change her ways? Not even a dog would want that. On graduation day, Olivia took me to get our marriage certificate. I had already met her parents. The day I went to her house, I kept tugging at the hem of my skirt. I was a nervous wreck, fantasizing the whole way about her mom, dressed in fur, pulling out a $5 million check for me. When Olivia found out, her eyes were full of amusement. As we got out of the car, she couldn't help but lean down and kiss my lips. If my mom really offers you $5 million to leave me, you better choose me, because I'm worth more than $5 million. Fortunately, Olivia's parents were very welcoming. That day, at her house, I saw a small cat with a limp. On our wedding day, to my surprise, Diana actually came. She had lost a lot of weight. When she saw me, her eyes reddened again and again. I gave her a cold nod and then walked past her. When Diana saw Michael and Olivia kissing on the stage, Diana remembered the day of truth or dare. Because of Michael's question, she had thought Michael was insecure and felt pleased by it. She had smugly said she'd choose the younger one. It turned out that on that very day, Olivia, younger and more outstanding than her, had confessed to Michael. The bullet she had fired with her own hands had hit her right between the eyes back then. She just didn't realize it until now. Diana finally couldn't hold back her tears. She truly loved Michael. She had fallen for Michael at first sight and pursued her for a long time. Back then, she had imagined their future together. But later, she felt Michael was too conservative, and because of Michael's orphan background, she vaguely thought Michael couldn't leave her. Coupled with Steven's appearance, it caused her to lose Michael forever. On the way back, Diana, in a daze, got into a car accident. In her dream, she saw her 20-year-old self, her face full of pain, questioning her. I loved her so much. Why did you lose her? But it was all too late. Some people once missed are gone forever. 7 days later, Olivia and I were on our honeymoon, standing under the northern lights. The gorgeous aurora, like a ballet, flowed above our heads. Olivia looked down, intertwined her fingers, adorned with a wedding ring, with mine, and kissed me. Michael, I love you, until the end of my life. At the end of the world, I received another romantic confession. Brilliant light refracted off our clasped, diamond-ringed hands, symbolizing an eternal promise. I smiled, looked up into her eyes, and said, "Me too." Olivia's story. The first time I saw Michael, she was coming out of the library. She was holding a black umbrella, walking under the dim lights. It was pouring rain. I saw someone carefully lift a few fluffy kittens out of the bushes. Then she trotted to the shelter across the way. I could clearly hear my own heartbeat. I was about to go over and give my umbrella to the girl. Just then, Her roommate ran over and gave her an umbrella. Behind me, I heard the faint meows of kittens. I saw a tiny kitten cowering pitifully under dry leaves beneath a tree. I instinctively went forward and picked up the kitten. When I stood up, the girl was gone. I custom-ordered a 3-tiered cat house, one that wouldn't get flooded in heavy rain. Coincidentally, the kitten I'd brought home that day got sick, so I had to ask Diana to help put the cat house back in the bushes. Diana shrugged, agreed to take it, and said she'd also buy breakfast for the girl she was pursuing. After returning from the vet, my roommate said excitedly, "Diana's been chasing that girl for over 3 months, and she hadn't agreed. But this morning, she finally said yes." I nodded, feigning indifference. I gathered my things and went to the library. This time, on a whim, I took an extra umbrella. But for 3 days straight, I didn't see that girl. Until Diana said she was treating everyone at the school gate and would introduce her girlfriend. I agreed. I never expected that person to be the one Diana had been pursuing for so long. Michael. They seemed very happy together. I suppressed my feelings but often felt miserable. Diana was good to me, and my upbringing wouldn't let me become the other woman. So I could only become more withdrawn. But I couldn't stop my feelings. I had to force myself to stay away from her. I despicably wished Michael would dump Diana. But reality wasn't like that. I thought perhaps I was destined to miss her in this lifetime. Until an underclassman started hanging around Diana. I watched coldly as they acted intimately while discussing projects, their eyes full of smiles. I knew, maybe I wouldn't miss my chance this time. Sure enough, Diana was too busy to be in 2 places at once. So, on a day of torrential rain, she begged me to pick Michael up. I agreed. Later, Diana started asking for more and more favors. "Olivia, Michael wants to play games with me. Can you log into my account and play with her for a bit?" I promised the underclassmen I'd go see a new movie. "Olivia, can you take Michael out to eat?" Her professor gave her 2 vouchers for a couple's restaurant, and she really wants to go with me. My interactions with Michael became more frequent. She was always very polite, thanking me. But as we got more familiar, she seemed to relax around me. A few days later, Michael had acute gastritis. Her roommate called me, saying Diana was busy and wouldn't answer their calls. The last shred of hesitation in my heart disappeared. I sneered inwardly. If it weren't for Michael, I would have cut ties with Diana long ago, as soon as I knew what kind of person she was. Who cared about being sisters with her anyway? I rushed Michael to the hospital. At the entrance, after getting her medicine, I saw Michael staring intently across the way. I glanced over. It was Diana and Stephen, kissing on a hospital bed. Seeing Michael cry, my heart ached. Later, she finally understood my boldness and started to distance herself from me. It broke my heart. Until that day at the club, I stopped her. She asked what I meant. I said, "Nothing much. I like you." "Michael, she doesn't deserve you. Be with me? At least give me a chance?" Michael and Diana broke up as expected. It was just Diana's answer to her question, saying she'd choose the younger one. I thought, I'm 2 years younger than Diana. Younger than her. Diana really was a good, unwitting guide. I should thank her. If it weren't for her, Michael wouldn't have agreed to be with me so quickly. As for what Michael saw in me, youth, excitement, whatever, it didn't matter. I had it all anyway. The day I proposed to Michael, my hand holding the ring was trembling. When Michael nodded, I almost cried. Under the northern lights, Michael said she loved me. I finally got her response. Olivia had caught her moonbeam,